If only someone could have came back from the future and told you to bet the under on every single game week 15.
Man, what a shit show. I think the average game was like 38 points, is like 4 points lower than any other week this season. And yeah, made for a low scoring fantasy week, that's for sure. I know a lot of people were texting me and friends, members, whatever. It's like, man, my team sucked this week. It's like, dude, so did everybody else's. It
Yeah.
was a low scoring week.
Literally everyone else's. And the millionaire winner on FanDuel scored what, like 160?
Yeah, just insane. Absolutely insane. The live final winner for FanDuel was like 140 points, which was nuts.
Yeah. And, a little bit of it kind of expected given the time of year, right, we're in, and like the alias players making starts, but then like just a lot of things that were like, what the hell?
I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised that you took a break long enough from playing NCAA 06 to watch the games.
Yeah, that has been my thing in the last week. Me and my roommates whipped out the PS2. I mean, obviously, there's no NCAA football game in like the modern day systems, and something nostalgic about that game in particular, and like the teams. I mean, we were playing like USC with Reggie Bush and Lendale White versus Vince Young, Texas. You got Marshawn Lynch on Cal. It's so funny. And I definitely recommend anyone that still has a PlayStation 2, if you're a football fan, like just buy that game. It's like $5, $10, right? Fire it up. Like you could get the rosters. You get a memory card with the rosters, which I've yet to do, but I definitely want to do. And like it's awesome, dude. Like you'll look back and be like, holy shit, Arian Foster is the third string running back for Tennessee.
Dude, yeah, and oh man, there's so many memories for that game. Like Hawaii's offense, like 5 wide receivers throwing every play, and god damn, yeah, that was a great game. Shit,
it's fun, man. Yeah, and it's like I was playing with like the Florida Gators the other day, and I was like, shit, man, they have nothing but shotgun. Like all their formations are like running the shotgun with Chris Leak, and this is before Tim Tebow was even on the team, right? And I'm like, damn it, can I get a fullback to lead block for me?
Nah, man, there's no fullback in college football, dude. I like running with Navy in that game, running the triple option. Always fun.
Oh, that's fun. I back like a decade ago, I actually like ran a dynasty mode with Navy and just.
Dude, I did too. But like I led the nation in fumbles for sure.
With the option, right? So yeah, hey, if you are bored of whatever games you're playing, trust me, you can't go wrong. You definitely. One thing I will say is like, the way the televisions are made nowadays, like the widescreen HD TVs, like they're not made for like the 480i video games. So you have to make sure you get the 4x3, change your screen dimensions. Cause at first we were like, dude, like we know it's PS2, but there's just still like the graphic, like I'm looking 10 yards down the field and I can't see what button I'm throwing to. But as soon as we figured that out, it was all systems go.
Yeah, that's a little pro tip for everybody out there.
There you go. And we were joking around. We were like, dude, how many people in the country do you think are playing this game? And we were like, oh, the educate like today, right? That day we were playing, and the educated guess we came to was like 100. We are like, maybe there's 100 people. What do you think?
Probably. I think 100 is a good guess. It's always because like because I used to play NBA 2K like 14 or 15, and I just didn't buy the game for I don't know how many years, and so I would play my franchise mode, but you would go online, and people are still online playing like NBA 2K 14 or something. So it's like I imagine people are also playing better games like NCAA 06. So
yeah. Well, moving on to the NFL in this week, hopefully we get some better matchups here, and a lot of injury news kind of affecting the point spreads and like the over unders. Want to start there?
Yeah, we can definitely start there. And I think Cam Newton and the Panthers is a good place to start. Cam just clearly not right. Everyone saw it on Monday night, which it sucks because it's an island game and all the naysayers will be out in full force after his primetime game. But he's clearly not healthy, so they're turning to Taylor Heineke. That point spread basically flipped. It opened Carolina -3. Now it's Atlanta -3, I think. So, that's big. And then we'll have the Todd Gurley news to watch out for. Potentially Aaron Rodgers. He said he's playing, although that spread is already flipped. So some people in the betting market seem to think that he's not playing. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's a mess, man. And if you've made it to this point in your fantasy season, I hope it's your championship, unless you have a week 17 championship game. But yeah, you're gonna have to follow practice reports Friday and even like game time decisions, because all of a sudden, someone can go from like must start to not playable, and then all of a sudden someone sitting on the free agency pool could be worth plugging in.
Yep, you have to watch it. And like for instance, I'm in a championship this week. I'm starting Jamal Williams at running back, pretty much unplayable for 15 weeks. But now Aaron Jones on IR, and we'll see a lot of these teams, especially those out of playoff contention, put these guys who are even maybe questionable for the week. You just put them on injury reserve, get some younger guys out there to see what they look like. So like Kerryon Johnson for Detroit, he's on injury reserve. He's not coming back this year. So there's a lot of guys like that are just, just stick them on injury reserve, and we'll watch the rest of these guys here. So guys like Nick Foles, Jamal Williams, I'm sure Deshaun Hamilton, Christmas Eve, Monday night might have some impact on some championship games. So a lot of these guys that didn't get you there, we talked about it last week, right? Like, don't just go with what got you here. You want to maximize your winning percent chances. I think a lot of people don't think about it. In week 16 championship, depends on your league and how many roster moves you have for season-long leagues, but just get as many players as you can. Maybe they don't help your team, but you got to block your opponent too. Don't let your opponent get a guy that can make or break his championship run.
Completely. And if you're out and you're in a third place game, like, don't pick people up, dude. Like,
I don't know why that's even a league setting that's possible. Like, I'm in a couple of leagues like that I don't commission. I'm like, man, why is like, who cares? You're not even in the playoffs. Like, why are you allowed to pick up players? It's not even a keeper league. Like, why?
That sort of trolling will come back and bite you in the ass. So,
right.
Now I know I like to rag on the Washington football team left and right, but one of the coolest, I think, stories last week was just seeing Josh Johnson engineer, a win for them. And it was, I think, his first career win?
I think I can't remember. If it was in a long time, because we haven't started since 2011 or something. So,
and he certainly, you could see the emotion, right, as they closed the deal. But for fantasy purposes, right, we saw when he came in for Sanchez in the second half against the Giants, he had 7 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. Last week, 9 carries for 49 yards and a touchdown. I mean, shit, those are better numbers than Jamal Williams has given us on many occasions. And we've had a few of these sort of guys, right? Like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, guys that were like, they have the rushing floor to give you reason to put them in your lineup. What do you think of Josh Johnson?
I think he's got to be in play if you're streaming quarterbacks, or as we'll talk about on Saturday, he's definitely an option. I think he's at the top of the model right now, still really early in the week, Wednesday evening, but he's really cheap, and he's been a top 10 quarterback despite playing 1.5 games. So on the 2-game slate, he's certainly in play, right? I mean, Mariota, I imagine he'll give the ball to Derrick Henry 1,000 times. Lamar Jackson faces his toughest test of the year against the Chargers.
Yeah.
And Phillip Rivers has a tough matchup in that same game against the Ravens defense. Yeah. So Johnson could be a guy that I think a lot of people should use. And we'll talk about this, and I'll plug it right now, as we'll tweet about this a couple more times, but we're doing this new live streaming on Twitch, which we tried it Monday night as we went through just trying to use the Occupy tools to build a lineup, because I think that's a lot of people have questions. Our members have questions. Like, how do I use the model to make a lineup? How do I use the plug? So using this live stream and showing how we do it, and taking questions in the chat is a good way to get that information out there. So we're going to try that again on Saturday, and do it for the 2-game slate. And I'm sure Josh Johnson will be a part of that.
Absolutely. And we'll also talk about Derrick Henry. He will probably be 100% owned given his last 2 weeks. What a monster stat line. 33 carries. Like, a lot of people may have said, hey, after that Jacksonville game, like, there's no way he can repeat a performance like that ever again. But I mean, he had 170 yards and 2 touchdowns.
he finally started playing more. I mean, like I said, we've said it on the podcast and the Daily Plug like every single week, and then it actually happened last week where, the Thursday night game, he just a monster of efficiency. He only had 17 carries or 19 carries, whatever it was. But then last week, he actually played 70 or 80% of the snaps. His season high in snap rate actually outsnapped Deion Lewis for the first time since week 1. So, they're feeding him now. They're riding him, especially in a game where they're 10-point favorites. They're going to ride him again. I would imagine him and Melvin Gordon, who looks like he's fully healthy, will be the easy top 2 plays on Saturday. But it'd be really hard to not play Henry on that 2-game slate.
Absolutely. So moving forward to Sunday, a couple of big games, some pretty much must-win spots here. What stack really sticks out to you on Sunday?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder about the Eagles and up against the Texans. Nick Foles is getting the start again. He's targeted Alshon Jeffrey at a much higher rate than he's targeted Zach Ertz since he has been in the lineup over the last 2 years. Texans have been pretty bad against the pass. They haven't played many good offenses, so that's been hidden a bit. Andrew Luck has torn them up twice, and just looking at how their opposing quarterbacks have done relative to their season average, the Texans haven't been that great. So I think Alshon Jeffrey, even Zach Ertz, even though he hasn't gotten the ball as much, Nick Foles, I think that's a good stack and a must-win game for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's the other games. There aren't that many with both teams having playoff implications.
Right.
So the only other one on that slate is, I'm trying to find. Is there even another one where both teams?
I mean, you could make a case for. I mean, if you're talking about playoff positioning, like the Steelers and Saints, right? That's the one where, I mean, both teams are obviously playing, but no, I mean, you're right. Like the Cowboys play the Bucks, right? The Dolphins play the Jags. The Bengals play the Browns. So it's like one team has something to play for. Like the Patriots play the Bills, Vikings play the Lions. So, but not really much where, you expect two teams to kind of lay it all on the line.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so tricky, especially now with so many of these teams out of the playoff picture, completely eliminated. We saw it with Leonard Fournette last week, just out of nowhere, super frustrating, where he gets one second half touch, and then it comes out on Tuesday. The coach said, we want to see what Dave Williams, whoever the fuck that is, get some work.
Tank mode in full effect, yeah.
So you got to be careful. I think Christian McCaffrey, I was talking with a buddy today. McCaffrey's played 100% of the snaps each of the last 5 weeks. They're out of playoff contention now. They're not going to start Cam Newton. It would make sense for him not to play that much anymore, right? So if you have him, would you be worried about him? I don't know how much his volume would decrease, but it has to go down, I would think.
I mean, his usage this year has been unreal, and I think that was really, outside of him being a white running back for some people, that was really the only reservation folks had. And I mean, next year he's going to be a top 3 pick, right? In pretty much every type of league. But no, it's one of the many unknowns as you look across these games, which bode well for higher risk contests, because who could have projected Leonard Fournette in a tight game to be totally invisible in the second half last week? And it won't surprise me if we see that with someone like Christian McCaffrey. With that said, it so much depends on the coaching philosophy, how the front office is thinking. If a coach is coaching for his job, right? Versus if they have that security and know, hey, I'll be back next year. Last thing I need is to give someone a season-ending or a torn ACL right now in a meaningless game and then lose them for the start of next year. Right. So, one thing I'll say, the Atlanta Falcons and my guy Julio Jones, they've been having a lot of fun. Well, Julio Jones, he's not having fun because he's a team guy, but 1,500 yards, about 6 touchdowns now on the season. I mean, is it safe to say this guy might have the quietest, dominant wide receiver year we've seen in a long time?
Probably so. What is it? It's 3 straight 1,400-yard seasons, I think, or something.
Unreal, yeah.
It's insane, absolutely insane. But yeah, people get on Julio for not scoring touchdowns, and of course he's still well below expectation in that department. but to consistently get that many yards, he's led the league in yards per route run, which is one of the most predictive metrics year over year, just by a wide margin each of the last 3 or 4 years. So I don't know. He didn't practice today. He fell on his hip in that game, and because they were up so much, he didn't play much in the second half against the Cardinals on Sunday.
Right.
And I saw a quote that he's uncertain for Sunday.
Yeah.
They don't have much to play for.
Sure, they don't.
They have nothing
And
to
they
play
haven't, right, for some time.
Right. So the question is, all right, is he healthy? If so, maybe they try to get him, the season long record for receiving.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason he would play in that case.
Right. I mean, he's like a 300-yard game away from really making that a serious thing. And we know what he's capable of. I mean, shit, he had like a 300-yard game against the Panthers before. So, but yeah, I mean, it just looks very risky across the board. I mean, like you look at the Dallas Cowboys, right, who just got shut out by the Colts, totally wet the bed. Dak Prescott totally irrelevant in the running game last week. What was he?
He didn't do much at all.
I don't even think he had a rushing yard. So yeah, in a big spot now. They're at home against a Tampa Bay team who we know what their defense is. Like, is that a bounce back spot everyone's going to be on with Zeke?
Oh, it's the biggest bounce back spot, and Zeke is one of the few backs this week on a team with something to play for, so his workload will be safe. So it's Zeke, I think.
Cash game lock, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Jalen Samuels for Pittsburgh. It doesn't sound like James Conner will be back. Just looking at some of these guys those are the two guys that stick out as guys who are playing for something and should get a full workload. So they should be, I think, low risk locks. I don't know. Were you surprised by that Cowboys loss last week in the fashion that happened?
I absolutely was, and not to say that I'm like, high on Dallas. I mean, obviously coming off that win they had against Philly, like a letdown wouldn't have surprised me, but 0 points and just how ineffective they were. Kudos to the Colts, as much as we kind of want to like point at Dallas here, and yeah, they wet the bed, but the Colts, they knew what they were playing for and they delivered. So I was surprised to an extent. If this happened 4 weeks ago, I wouldn't have been, but given just how Dallas's offense has looked in recent weeks with the addition of Amari Cooper, definitely surprised. I mean, I had one lineup with both Dak and Ezekiel Elliott, and you can imagine how well that one did.
Yeah, just about as well as my 9 WFFC lineups. So we're in the same boat. On the brighter note, fading the high-owned receivers did go over well. If you played Juju, if you played Edelman, you played Cooper, probably weren't happy with the results. But then again, I wasn't happy with the receivers I picked either. So
right,
it was a wild week, really wild week for receiver scoring too.
Comes with the high risk territory. So another bounce back spot. The Patriots at home against the Bills. It just seems like, I don't know, what is it? The James White usage has been mind blowing. I mean, this guy had 2 carries last week, 4 carries the week before. Like, what's going on?
So they briefly mentioned it during their stretch where White was getting like 6, 7, 8 catches a game. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Brady, but someone came out and was like, "Yo, we're using James White a lot. We probably need to like chill a little bit." And it flew under the radar. And then Burkhead comes back. Michelle gets healthy. It gives him an opportunity to actually give White some breaks for this stretch run. And then I think it was Sunday after the game, they asked Brady, and he's like, "Yeah, we've been working James White too hard. Like, we need to give him some rest." And they've been doing that. And this seems like the perfect game to rest him, where against the Bills defense, Patriots are double-digit home favorites. This seems like a Sony Michel game where they just run him.
Yeah,
as 13-point home favorites. I think he's a good high-risk play this week. I don't know where his ownership will end up being, but if you own Michel in your season-long league and you're thinking about playing for the championship, when else are you going to play him?
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the Patriots, we have to believe that they're smart enough to understand what's at stake. They have 2 games left versus the Bills and the Jets. And honestly, they can't afford to lose one, in my opinion, because what'll happen is that, okay, they're already going to have to even though they beat the Chiefs now at 2 games behind, they're gonna have to go to Kansas City in any event that they play them, right? But they still want to make sure that in the event that they see the Steelers in the playoffs, the Texans in the playoffs, the home tilt in those sort of games matters so much, and they have to know that. Like we know that. Like the Pats at home have been so dominant throughout the years, and you get them. I mean, they're 6-0 this year at home. They're 3-5 on the road. That speaks for itself, right? These next 2 games are huge, and whether you want to say the Bills and Jets have nothing to play for, it's hard for me to imagine both of those teams like saying, forget it. Who cares? We're playing the Patriots. I think they'll get up. I think they know the Patriots have something to play for. And with that said, I expect them to use James White a little more than they have the last 2 weeks. And Sony Michel, right? I just get Burkhead out of there, man. Like
that's my boy, though. They got to keep using him. Give him 20 touches a game.
Oh my God!
I'm on the opposite side of you. Give Burkhead as many touches.
He's the guy now. Yeah, he had 7 touches last week.
That's his sweet spot. 7 touches, enough to fuck everybody else up, but not have any fantasy value himself. So that's Perfect. Really his sweet spot. Yeah, I mean the Bills, they've played with an energy with Josh Allen under center. The Jets look energized with Sam Darnold last week coming back. So, I mean, these won't be walkover games. The Patriots have shown to be vulnerable this year. But they don't want to play this wild card weekend game because they'll likely be the 3 seed. I mean, it would take a miracle for them to drop to the 4 seed. But it's a tough – the AFC is tough, right? So they got 3 teams basically battling for the 6th wild card spot. Colts, Ravens, Titans, the most realistic chances. Out of those 3, who do you think has – all right, so if you had to pick one of those 3 to make a run and win the AFC and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, who do you think you would pick out of those 3? Or
sheesh, good question, right?
I'm biased. I'm biased. I have Super Bowl winners from 2 of those 3 teams. So
the Ravens are one of them?
Ravens are one of them, right?
Yeah. So, and I'll say this first and foremost, like I really like what the Ravens have done. How they've adjusted to Lamar Jackson, how they've played, because we know the Ravens defense is awesome. Like they can, regardless of what happens year to year, injuries, like they bring it every year. And I mean, are they the number 1 ranked defense points against? I think they are.
Yeah, I think by points against and even pass defense, I think that by some metrics they're number 1. I mean, yeah, they're a solid defense, of course. So.
And I mean, every week they give themselves a chance because they're going to try and impose their will, play this ball control offense, slow your offense down, wear your defense out. They don't need to beat you by putting up 35 points. They're going to try and get you to play their game. So when you have a team like that, if they don't commit penalties, if they don't turn the ball over, they're going to give themselves a chance. I don't care who they're playing. It's just the way football works, right? Like if you can control the ball for 40 minutes and you can protect that football, you can keep that other team's offense off the field. You're not playing catch up. You have a chance. So by default, I'll say the Ravens because I mean, we saw what they did to the Chiefs. They competed, right? They pretty much took them down the wire in Arrowhead. But Andrew Luck, for me, I'd say that'd be the most fun team to see make a run. Like I loved that would be an awesome story. I mean, they're fun. They're an exciting offense. And they've shown on a few occasions that defense can really bring it. And for what it's worth, like they're a pretty well-rounded team.
They are. We talked about it, a couple of weeks ago, I think, just how smart their coaching staff is using the numbers and on both sides of the ball. So, you know, I put it out on Twitter a couple of weeks ago that they were 100-1 and they were trending in the right direction in those all-important expected points charts. So I have, like I said, I have the Ravens at 50-1 from before the season started, and now I have the Colts at 100-1.
Great.
Ideally, the Steelers trip up and miss the playoffs. Ravens win the division. The Colts sneak in as a 6th seed. I get 2 teams into the playoffs, but I'll take either one of those. But I think your point about the Ravens is so key. By by imposing their will, it forces other teams to get jumpy, right? Mahomes against the Chargers on Thursday night, he's making some wild plays out of the pocket, and it forces teams to make plays And because like we only have a couple opportunities to have the ball, we got to do
Yeah.
what we can with it. And if you can hold the opponent and keep the game as a one-score game, you're
Mhm.
always going to be in it, right? So one-score
Yeah.
games are always noisy. It's, team last year was 6-1 in one-score games. Well, that could be 1-6 this year, right? As long as you
Yeah.
are in a one-score game for 3 playoff games, you can make the Super Bowl. So
You have a chance, and we've seen teams like the New York Giants win Super Bowls, right, as a 6 seed. So, and another thing I think that, is fresh in people's mind was that 6-0 loss to the Jaguars, which, I mean, anytime you get shut out just like Dallas did,
yeah,
like this past week, to the Colts, ironically enough, like it's gonna stick in people's minds, especially when you get shut out by a bad team, right?
yeah.
But I mean, before that, I mean, so they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Texans, they lost to the Jaguars, but they beat the Dolphins, beat the Titans, beat the Jags, beat the Raiders, beat the Bills. They've won 7 of their last 8, and that's pretty impressive at any point in the season.
Yeah, regardless of who you're playing, it's like, well, they have an easy schedule. It's like, yeah, of course they do. So you have to take some of their numbers with a grain of salt. But they
Mhm.
they had what they'd had in front of them, and they beat them. They won
Big
7 of
for
the 8.
confidence. And football's like, getting the team focused on like, like it's so crazy. Like you have such a short time to prepare that like the best teams are the ones that go into Monday and like, everyone's excited, fired up, focused. Like and when you win, it's contagious versus when you lose, it's like, ah shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of dragging your feet. Um, the Colts have confidence. The Ravens have confidence. They believe in themselves. And I don't want to forget about the Titans, but I think altogether the AFC right now is fucking exciting, dude. Because the Chargers have shown, hey, they're just as legit of a contender as everyone else. We know what the Chiefs can do. Even the Browns. I mean, I was rooting for the Patriots, which is rare to say, just so the Browns could, sneak in to the postseason. But yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for how wide open this thing is. It's not just the Patriots conference anymore.
No, it's not, and it's definitely not their conference. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays out. It's really mind-boggling that the Chargers are probably going to end up 13-3 in a 5 seed. So
Yeah,
that,
I think, and something needs to be changed at some point or another. I know the NFL loves how seamlessly like the scheduling works with the 4x8, and I'm fine leaving the divisions the way they are, but I mean, something's got to give. Like you cannot have a team that goes 13-3 play their. I mean, not that it matters to the Chargers, right, with their home field advantage, but like come on, for the love of God, like this team should not be the 5 seed. Just reorder him. Who cares? Like, okay, fine. The division winners make the playoffs, but why are you going to seed them according to that? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, you will probably have like a 9-7 team or like a 9-6-1 team if it's the Steelers host a 13-3 team. And that's crazy to me.
it's such bullshit. Such bullshit. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've seen a lot of different recommendations for how to change it out there, but something should be changed. But like I said, the NFL doesn't like change that much, so I doubt anything
Yeah.
comes of it. What about the NFC side? My Bears 1 game away now from securing a bye if the Rams can slip up one more time, although they have a very easy schedule. What are your thoughts on how some of these top teams are playing in the NFC and trending in the wrong direction?
Definitely trending in the wrong direction, but I don't know if I said this on this podcast, but I definitely vocalized it a few weeks ago amongst friends. I'm like, don't overthink this shit. This is the time of year. So we know the Rams and Saints were just kicking ass, right? They were like pretty much 10-1 and like looked unbeatable in the process. But the reality is, man, like it happens. Like this, didn't the Saints start 13-0 and then go 13-3 the year they won the Super Bowl a number of years ago?
Yeah, yeah,
Like at the end of the day, I do believe that as they get to this point in the season, the coaching staff, like they're not just gonna like they're not just gonna use their best plays and start
true.
dialing up by any means like schemes, right? They know their playoff teams. They want home field advantage for sure, and they're gonna play for it. But at the same time, like whether like look, they will be okay. Jared Goff, there's some reason to be concerned, but I know McVay will put him in good spots. In my eyes, the Saints and despite how impressive the Bears have been, I don't want to take this away from them. They've been awesome. In my eyes, they are still the number 3 team, right? Going forward. Like if I was to bet on any of these guys, if anything, it's like, hey, maybe betting on the Rams or the Saints now, you're going to get better payouts than if you did that 4 weeks ago when they were trending in the right direction. So, I'm not going to panic on either of these teams. Like, if let's say these games were lost like in week 6 or week 9, right? Totally different. Like, there's no concern, right? And the Saints have it, like the Saints won, but they still weren't looking like the same Saints. But you're talking about teams like they've put up so many points. Their offensive dominance is not going anywhere just because they had 1 or 2 games that are like,
Right. I mean, just think about it this way, right? Let's just say it's the NFC Championship game, and you're down a score. Which offense are you trusting to get the score for you? It's not the Bears, probably, as much as it pains me to say it. It's going to be the Saints or it's going to be the Rams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but with that said, kudos to the Bears that are playing the best right now in the NFC, and they in confidence, as we said, like they now believe that they can beat anyone, which is absolutely important, right? Whereas some of these teams that looked unbeatable, like the Rams and Saints, like they can be beat. There's no doubt about it. But for the most part, I mean, between the whole NFC East, you can like one of those teams will host a playoff game, but I'm not concerned, or they're not on my radar. The Seahawks, Vikings, those 2 teams, I think could create some trouble just because, like, I don't. They just their defenses are good. They they have enough going for them that like I could still see an upset. Like I wouldn't rule out like the Vikings going into Chicago and beating him, or the Seahawks. Like it could happen. But for what it's worth, Saints, Rams, head and shoulders above the rest. But it'll be fun. Who knows, right? You got to play the games, and I'll say this: no one's looking at the Vikings as a legitimate contender. But for some reason, I still feel like if there's a team that, like, if there's a wild card team / an NFC East team in the NFC that could make some noise, I think it's the Vikings outside of the main 3 teams.
Yeah, I would think so. Probably. I mean, I just think the Seahawks run the ball too much.
Yeah.
Their defense isn't that great. Vikings, I think so. Yeah, because who else are you going to pick, right? The Eagles, probably not. I mean, as much as the commentators were all about the Nick Foles magic in that game Sunday night, let's be serious. It's still Nick Foles. Mm-hmm. Redskins, nope. Although that would be awesome to see Josh Johnson somehow.
Yeah, it would, but don't hold your breath.
Cowboys, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Panthers are done now. Yeah, it's Vikings and Seahawks basically. So, yeah, I think the Vikings out of those 2 teams probably. So,
for sure. All right, guys. Well, good luck to you in week number 15. If you don't follow us at Occupy Fantasy, any closing thoughts, Brian?
I don't think so. I know the season is coming to an end here, and just know that we have the Daily Plug still going up throughout the end of the regular season into the playoffs. The Occupy model's up every week. So while the regular season is coming to an end, we still have content all the way through playoffs. And of course, you still have the NBA, still have the NHL going strong. So just because NFL is coming doesn't mean the other sports aren't there for you to take. So take advantage of your membership, all sports. Mm-hmm. Real quick, in NHL, are you qualifying for any tournaments recently?
Not yet, man. I've actually been pretty profitable the last 2 weeks, but have just missed on the big. I've picked up a few $33 satellites, but that's not really anything to write home about. Always aiming for the $333 tickets, and nothing to report yet. Got 5 last month. Hopefully, get 1 or 2 at least to give me a chance here. But other than that, I've been doing well with cash games and leagues.
That's good. Yeah, and I think as the NFL season does wind down, this is really the last week, especially on DraftKings, to get some decent satellites on a FanDuel. They only have cross-source satellites right now, so really your satellite game should be looking at NHL and NBA only. maybe there's one last week in DraftKings NFL, but pretty sad because these last 15 weeks been trying to get a bunch of tickets. Now
Yeah.
that's kind of come to an end. I don't know what to do with myself. So.
Oh no, you'll be all right. Well, happy holidays.
You too, Walid. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.